Welcome along. It is Thursdays Off the Ball. Nathan with you until 10 o'clock tonight. The Nations League. Why do you hurt us so? 12 matches, no wins for the Republic of Ireland, just 2 goals scored, and yet another defeat last night against Ukraine at the Aviva Stadium. Some big questions for Stephen Kenny to start answering. A lot of people feeling Ireland are right back at square one once again. We're going to have reaction to that game with John Giles from 7:30, and Dan McDonnell is going to be along for the football show. We'll also hear from 2 Ireland internationals, Jack Byrne and Jamie Finn, during the football show. After 8 o'clock, the former Kerry footballer Tommy Walsh will join us. He'll look ahead to the weekend's football qualifiers. Ireland international Claire Shine has a new book out. She's only 27, but it's her autobiography. She's had a remarkable journey over the last few years, battling through alcoholism, struggles with drugs, and hoping to get back into Vera Pauw's international setup. So Claire Shine's going to be in studio after 8 o'clock. And we're going to be talking as well about LIV Golf. It has happened. Round 1 is just coming to an end. They say they're going to revolutionise golf, but it's a 5-hour first round. LIV Golf just outside London. They're just about to wrap up in the next few minutes. A pretty extraordinary day in professional golf. The PGA Tour have responded with bans for all of those who have taken part. 53106 is the text number if you want to get in touch. Give us your thoughts on what you made of the performance at Lansdowne Road last night, and also if you've been watching the golf on YouTube, let us know what you've made of it all. 53106 the text number. At Off the Ball on any of the social channels. Richie McCormack, good evening.
Evening, Nathan.
And couldn't drag himself away from YouTube all day, Richie. And Joe Molloy, who in a purely professional capacity just sat down for the afternoon to keep an eye on this. How are you, Joe?
Hello, gents. How are we doing?
I'm all right. Maybe we should come to the golf in a minute, because I think we need to start with the football. We were at the Aviva Stadium last night, and Stephen Kenny has come in, and he's 23 games into this now, Joe, and I think for a lot of people last night it was maybe the biggest setback so far. Not in terms of results. Luxembourg was a very difficult one to get over, Armenia very difficult, but just in terms of where this group is going. It didn't feel very different to what we saw 3 years ago, 5 years ago, in terms of style of football, in terms of progress, creating opportunities. It felt like a massive step back.
Yeah, I suppose it did. It's hard to find an upside in last night. I mean, certainly the result in Yerevan put a certain pressure on this week, and it now looks like a very difficult week. I don't know what to say anymore, really. Like, it is disappointing because we felt that we had turned a corner. And so now we've turned that corner and we seem to have come across a brick wall in the middle of the road. I mean, certainly my sense watching it was Ukraine were the better team pretty much throughout from the first, or bar the first, rather, 13, 14 minutes or so. It was just very lifeless and slow. You can almost forgive any style of football if there's a certain pace to it, but the Irish side, it was just painfully slow, and Ukraine were incredibly comfortable when they had the ball, and they were pretty much comfortable when Ireland had the ball, bar when we reverted to what it seems we can only revert to at a certain point, which is Shane Duffy try and get us a goal, and that's really kind of a grim state of affairs. You rightly, and it is correct to talk Stephen Kenny, and so where is Kenny, and that's a question, I suppose, that will be answered further over the rest of the week. I have to say, I really like this bunch of players in many ways, but they have to take a lot of responsibility as well for Yerevan as well. Nothing, I said it to Stu Byrne, nothing the Ukraine players did was outstanding or like jaw-dropping. I mean, fair enough, they disallowed goal, but you, in general play, nothing they did was outstanding, jaw-dropping, or beyond the reaches you would think of a lot of these Irish players. But then a part of me thinks just their efficiency, better decision-making, better ball control, better passing, just all these little things add up. And by the end of it, they win the arm wrestle, and it's conclusive. I just found myself looking at the players and thinking, this may just be where we are, actually. And in previous managers, we've looked at the management teams and felt, oh, well, they're not allowing the teams to express themselves. And here's Trapattoni ignoring a Wes Hoolahan, and here's O'Neill and Keane, and we're hearing reports that not enough has been done in preparation. And Matt Doherty's on doing radio station interviews and saying, well, they're not doing very much behind the scenes training. And so there was this nagging hope, I think, that maybe a management team hadn't arrived yet, which truly believed in the players and was doing all the work possible. And I know that's happening with Kenny and Keith Andrews. You just know how hard they're working. You know what they're putting into it. You know the belief they have. They're trying to get this team to play a brand of football. And look, you watched the last 2 nights, and of course the tricky thing with international football is that other teams then start watching you back and start making plans for you. And maybe we just had a bit of success because Callum Robinson hit a level of form that he's not likely to hit very often, and because other teams were adjusting to the new style of football we're playing. But frankly, we're not all that good at it yet, and teams can allow for it. And so, look, I'm very demoralised because I'd always wondered what would happen when we get a management team who truly did encourage the players to really play. And what we saw last night in Yerevan it's just so flat. It's so easy to play against. And, you know, that was a second string Ukrainian team, and they couldn't have been more comfortable. So, yeah, I think it's a painful one. And now Scotland and Ukraine away take on certain significance for the manager. But, like, what do we do here?
Well, I think demoralised is the word,
manager.
Isn't it? Because, listen, there's obviously been a divide right from the start of those people who felt that Stephen Kenny should never have got the job, that he wasn't fully qualified, he hadn't managed at a high enough level despite all he'd achieved with Dundalk. But there was also, I think, a majority who, like you say, believed in what they were trying to do and have got behind this group of players and want more from Irish football than just sort of chancing our arm. But I think those people coming out last night would look at it and think, where was that style of football in last night's performance? Where was it in the second half in Yerevan? And that while there's some pressure on Stephen Kenny, it's not overwhelming yet, but I think people now are looking at it thinking, you also need results. At some stage, you got to get the results. And that's why these next 2 games become hugely important. And I think last Friday, looking at the 4 games, you didn't think there was any way where there'd be question marks about Stephen Kenny's job. He had a new 2-year deal in his back pocket. Whereas now you lose to Armenia, you lose at home. Suddenly, Scotland have a better quality of player than Ireland have. And now you got to go away and play Ukraine, who'll probably be coming out at full strength. And you are kind of worried about where we go. But the players are what they are. But Stephen Kenny, Richie, can't use that as an excuse. On day 1, before he even got the job, he said he was never going to use that as an excuse. Though looking at it last night, even if it's Ukraine's second string, their midfield of Sidorchuk and Shaparenko. Like, Shaparenko's 23, he's playing for Dynamo Kiev. He's played Champions League football, group stage Champions League football for the last 2 seasons. Group stage Europa League football for 2 seasons before that. Like, these guys are playing at a level that we just don't have players at. And it's not going to change anytime soon. Regardless of the good news for the 21s tonight who are guaranteed of a playoff, we can stake it all on Will Smallbone. But we've staked it all on Troy Parrott and Michael Obafemi and Aaron Connolly. And maybe we just got a little bit carried away about the quality of the players that were coming through and lost a bit of perspective of what could be achieved. Because looking at last night against a second string Ukraine side, technically they were miles ahead of what Ireland had.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Joe in that aspect, in that you kind of look at them and think, well, maybe this is where we are. Maybe there is no better to be had from the current crop of players that we have, and this is just our level. Because there's both in Yerevan and last night, and you can probably trace it back through previous games as well. You can see when Irish players get the ball, there isn't a sense that they're receiving the ball with the knowledge in their head of what the next 3-4 passes will be or what the next 4 movements will be among those around them. They receive the ball and then think, gosh, what next? Where am I looking? Where's the runner?
Is that
going?
not a tactical thing, though, Richie? Is that not a tactical thing you should
I think
have
it is,
worked on the training ground, that you know where the other guy is going to be and he's going to be in a good position for you?
It's a tactical thing, and it's just a player awareness thing as well, because you mightn't be used to playing that kind of head-up ball and playing championship football, playing League One football, as a lot of these players have been. Like, it's a different level to playing Champions League group stage as some of the second-string Ukrainians have been able to play. But there are changes that Kenny, in my mind anyway, can make, at least tactically. I've thought for the last 2 games that the front 3 looks very confused in what they're trying to do. I don't think Callum Robinson is anywhere near the form where he was scoring those goals against Azerbaijan and Qatar. And I think his role is confused. I think those around him on either side of him get a bit muddled as well, because the likes of Chidozie Ogbene and whoever is playing right wing back end up occupying a lot of the same space, and neither of them do it particularly effectually. So, and midfield is understaffed. I don't think that's something that can be denied. Watching Josh Cullen and Jeff Hendrick chase shadows last night, like there was one point last night where we lost possession. I think it was around the hour mark. Ukraine had lost possession around 40 yards from our line, and there was no midfielder. There was nobody within for us within 10 yards of the ball to go and retrieve it. Like little things like that shouldn't happen.
Well, ironically,
they happen way
Richie,
too frequently.
Ironically, having more defenders on the pitch is making Ireland more open because of the space that is being left in the midfield.
There's the space left in the midfield. There's no proper link between midfield and the attack. There's no proper screen then between midfield and defence, and it's just leaving you open to conceding long-range goals, like in essence we did last night in the first half, and then subsequently from the free kick, like we did in Yerevan, like we have done against Luxembourg, and it's happened before, and it will continue to happen, because I genuinely think the midfield is understaffed, and that is something that is easily changeable. I don't think there's a need to play with three centre halves at the moment. I think that was just a patch that was put in place for something that would work, because it was difficult to pick 2 out of 4 maybe, or 2 out of 3, whereas now play a back 4, I reckon.
Yeah. Well, I think as well, though, to be fair, that 3 at the back can and should work if your wing backs are really contributing, and there's no doubt that without Matt Doherty and without Seamus Coleman we were down. I mean, Cyrus Christie is only okay on the ball and has only ever been very okay on the ball, and not much more beyond. Enda Stevens, we're just not quite getting the best out of Stevens. He played a beautiful right-footed pass through to Jason Knight in the first half, and anytime you see Stevens, you think there should be more of a player in there, because he's technically good, but I don't think our wing-backs were giving us enough. And if you're into that situation, then very quickly that system is going to look minus any armaments, because they're your key ones.
Well, there's a lot coming in about Anthony Barry and Anthony Barry's influence.
Look,
and
that jumped out to me. That jumped out to me because if you think in Yerevan, for instance, here's maybe the beauty of Barry was he was working with Tuchel week in, week out, and he was having to I suppose Chelsea coming up with solutions to different problems posed by different teams. And so that is you're right at the pointed end of the trends in the game. Whereas like you take Stewie Byrne last night, we were chatting to Stewie. He felt, for instance, in Yerevan that Josh Cullen was far too high up the pitch. He should have been back there taking the ball off the back 3. That's what he wanted from Cullen. Now, Cullen was doing that last night, but then it seemed like there was this enormous gap between the Irish midfield and the front 3. So which is it? Or does it depend on the challenge that the opposition are posing you, or is it a mixture of the 3? And certainly, I mean, the Barry exit and the subsequent downturn, look, it's very easy on the outside to take 2 + 2 and get 5 sometimes, but it can't help. And you did have someone who was working with Tuchel and who was coming up with solutions to these problems all the time, whereas without that, who knows? Look, I have to say, though, I come back to it, watching that performance last night and watching the performance in Yerevan, I think there is a reality about the players that we have to face. And there are, because do you know what happens, and it's been happening for a lot of the last year as well, is that we explain away really poor play as, look, the player just made a mistake that time, or just, but like, if you are what you continually do, and we continually misplace passes, we continually have bad touches, we continually make bad decisions when we're on a rare breakaway and ball carrier has 2 ahead of him and takes the wrong option and the move breaks down. If you keep doing that, then it's not that's an uncharacteristic loss of the possession there. That's just kind of where we are a lot of the time, and it's where a lot of these players are, and I don't think there's any tactical innovation that can surmount those basics. And Ukraine, like I said last night, they didn't do anything that took our breath away. There was just an efficiency with the basics of the game done at a reasonable pace, and off we go. And we just couldn't do that. So if I was Stephen Kenny, I really would be sitting back watching that game, and I would be thinking, like, any ideas, anyone? Because what can we do here to get to bypass some of these basics? And the one thing that you could do is the one thing that I don't think he is going to do, and I'm glad he's not going to do it, by the way, is let's just lump it forward to someone.
Well, you see how ineffective that was when they eventually.
Do we not lump it forward? We lumped it forward a lot.
We do when it gets to a point, and it gets to a point where we need to salvage a game. That's what happens, and you can see how effective it isn't, in essence, when that happens, because like chances are so few and far between when you try and actually play that way, and it's beyond regressive.
Well, Stephen and Donegal makes that point that Ukraine just have better technical players. This was true when Martin O'Neill was in charge. We'll lose against Scotland not because of the manager, it's because their players play for Manchester United, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Celtic, Aston Villa, and like international football isn't the pinnacle anymore like the Champions League is.
No.
But they have players playing at that level. They have players playing at a high level in the Premier League. Ireland's players are coming from League One, from the Championship, where you can afford to give the ball away and you'll get it back pretty quickly. But we saw last night, when you give the ball to Ukraine, you don't get it back. They can string 20 passes together. They can know when to be patient. They know when to inject a little bit of pace. And there is no quick fix for that because, listen, we absolutely, and lots of texts coming in, critical of off the ball, and we started the Kenny bandwagon. The one thing I've always been wary of is the hyping up of the players, because Stephen Kenny's no control of the destiny of all these players. And likewise with this 21s, we all would love Will Smallbone to go on and become a key man for Ireland very quickly. But he's been sat on the bench for Southampton all season. The expectation is he'll leave Southampton this summer, maybe on loan to a Premier League team, maybe on loan to a Championship team. But he's not going to be... he's not going to be a Declan Rice or a Jack Grealish who would transform a team. And it does feel that that's all it needs right now, is one or two players at that top level, young, exciting, technically gifted, like what England are producing dozens of right now, would come in and transform this side. If it's somebody in the middle of midfield, one or two players who could really take control of a game.
Yeah.
But we just don't know who those players are going to be.
No, like just players to knit it together or just to unlock something. Like, it was extraordinary in the first minute when Knight... It's just so at odds with what we see Irish players doing all the time. Ball into Knight and he just rolls the player and turns and runs at the defence and he's away. And then a second or third time he gets the ball, he beats two men in the area, gets a shot away. And you kind of see what an individual can do at that level, just to spark a bit of something. And then he went out of the game, much like the rest of the team. Wes Hoolahan in that environment would often spark something. I always think he's on my mind because I was talking to Nedum Anua, the Manchester City player today. And he came through with Stephen Ireland. And Stephen Ireland was one of the great lost talents who could play in that pocket and with first-time passes and vision, just get something moving and other players could play off him. And we absolutely lack that bit of talent in there. As for the... I wouldn't even pay much heed to those texts about the Stephen Kenny thing. I wish we had that much power that we could get somebody into a job. Let's remind ourselves of that whole situation and how the FA handled it, and John Delaney and the whole succession plan. That whole mess. There was a lot more going on there. But I wouldn't make any apologies for pushing for somebody who had done what he did with Dundalk and and played the kind of football he had played and was going in with the 21s and then was going to make the step up and who you sense was really invested in Irish football and was going to prepare. And you've Keith Andrews. Like, are you telling me Stephen Kenny, Keith Andrews can't sit down and analyse a game as well as anybody around? Do you think they don't know football? Do you think is that the issue here? It's not the issue. It's not the issue. I think, unfortunately, you're kind of coming to the conclusion that, look, it was worth investing in that kind of a management team with that kind of philosophy. But there is a bottom line with the players that we have.
Well, it's bizarre that anyone would send a message who claims to have an interest and a love of Irish football, sort of trying to do down what Stephen Kenny achieved and do down the League of Ireland. So
there's a glee in it, and you could see it online. There's been a glee in his misfortunes from day one, and it's born of a misconception about what the League of Ireland is or isn't, and it's really ugly, like really, really ugly to see people almost reveling in the fact that Ireland are losing. And that it's happening at the hands of somebody who's from Dundalk.
I agree with you, Rich, but you know the truth. We all know the truth. That is less than 1% of people. That is, honestly, they're so loud, and it's the online world.
I've been told there's more football coming, lads. Just get the hell on with the Newsround.
We will. But just one point on that, though. The vast majority of people you talk to know their football. Like, watch their football. I've watched it for years. I've played it. They know their football. And the vast majority of people looking at it realise that the players are at a level and are willing to give Stephen Kenny a lot of rope because they understand he's trying to bring up the level and bring up the efforts to at least play some football. And people are realistic about where we can go. So the 1% who are, I don't know what, texting in, jumping up and down saying, ha ha ha. I mean, like, they're to be ignored, really. I pay no heed to them.
I have just been sent a tweet from an account called Bielsa to Ireland. Do you think Irish football could even break Marcelo Bielsa's spirit?
I would, look, if Bielsa wants to think about coming to Ireland, I think that's something we should
we should talk about. We better get into the news round because we haven't even got to LIV Golf. The news round is brought to you by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to the day. Where are you starting, Richie?
We are starting with the war between the PGA Tour and LIV Golf. The PGA Tour suspending the 17 members who have decided to play on the Saudi-backed series. The breakaway tour underway just outside of London today. PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monaghan has also informed all players that those who've resigned their memberships are no longer valid for FedEx Cup rankings. LIV Golf have called the move vindictive, claiming it deepens the divide between the tour and its members. Golf Channel analyst Brandel Chambly believes the LIV series marks a sad day for the game of golf.
The foundation of the PGA Tour is built upon philanthropy. It looks after the players. It has health benefits, pension, safety nets. It has tours for the beginning, the prime, and the end of players' careers. Now let's look at LIV Golf. What's its foundation? This foundation is based upon greed and sports washing. It buys these players, and it will treat these players, make no mistake about it, it will treat these players as a depreciating asset. They will be expendable. They will be tossed aside when they have no further use to LIV Golf. That's exactly what this is. They are just depreciating assets. So this is a sad day as we watch these players, I think, destroy their reputations, self-immolate, all that they've stood for in the game of golf.
Yeah, listen, I don't know if I'd go quite that far on the PGA Tour and their philanthropic nature. The general sense of the PGA Tour's response with banning all of the players is that it's been quite weak and was the least that they could do. Maybe there's more to come, but this is underway. The first round is just finishing around 5 hours, so not that exciting. About 100,000 people watching on YouTube, we think. What you've been tuning in throughout the day? Like, is this revolutionised golf viewing for you, Joe?
I watched a bit of it, yeah, just out of curiosity. There's skepticism over how many of those 100,000 people are real. I mean, what was worrying, if you're a DP World Tour fan, which of course I know you are, Nathan, they also stream their coverage on YouTube, and there was somewhere between 120 and 150 people watching that from Sweden.
But they've got TV deals to counterbalance that too.
Yeah, but how many people are actually watching on Sky on a Thursday morning, do you think?
And ironically, it is the European Tour who are being extremely innovative this week, because that event that's on in Scandinavia is a mixed event where they put European Tour players and ladies European Tour players into the same tournament.
Yeah, it's innovative, and that is trying to grow the game. I would say one thing about the TV coverage, obviously it's overhyped and they're talking about this as some kind of revolution, and there was an odd thing, by the way, on the YouTube coverage. I don't know if it's still up, because it shouldn't be. I've just spent half an hour watching that instead of watching the golf. This is very much an in-house thing, but this is every broadcaster's worst nightmare. You'd have been sacked for two.
It's all I could think of is I wouldn't have lasted 90 seconds and I'd be fired.
If you go on to the LIV Golf YouTube link and they have the first day streamed, the first hour of it is, I don't know who hit record or who hit live stream. Microphones are up and it's the production team and the presenters getting ready for broadcast, and this is all streamed live and their microphones are up, and the main presenter, his name again, Nathan?
Arlo White.
Arlo White's like
star of Ted Lasso.
As happens on TV, they're like rehearsing different things and different graphics, and they're showing, one graphic has the stops, and Arlo's turning to like the guys next to him, and he's like, I'm looking forward to Chicago. There's a journalist in Chicago trying to get me fired, and the guys are like, oh really? Yeah. They're just chatting away, oblivious to the fact this is all going out on to the internet. Nobody said anything Keys-esque, so
somehow, I don't know how.
Somehow. As for what can you glean from it, I mean, who knows? I would say, though, the TV experience of the PGA Tour or the European Tour of an average Thursday, Friday, to a slightly lesser extent Saturday, Sunday, but only slightly lesser extent, they have like a field but stretched across 10 hours, and it's way too thin and it's very slow. It's why when you watch golf, there are lots of shots of scenery and the leaderboards as they wait for the marquee groups to get to their ball after hitting. Whereas the one thing about a shotgun start is the LIV Golf money has bought enough big names that when there's a shotgun start and they're all on the course and they're all mic'd up, it's non-stop golf shots, and it feels like a much fuller TV experience, leaving aside all the issues people have with LIV Golf. And I was thinking to myself, Nathan, you've sat through many a dull Thursday. It was a better TV experience. It's something that the PGA Tour could maybe get away without whilst they were a monopoly. But now that there's competition and a better TV experience elsewhere, they may have to look into something similar, because the thought now of watching a PGA Tour event with so many breaks in play and so much filler, and most of the best players maybe out in the afternoon session, you're watching morning session, or vice versa. I'm not sure if that's going to cut it for much longer.
Yeah, they obviously don't have ads yet on LIV Golf because nobody's actually advertising or sponsoring the event, which impacts it. And also the players weren't all mic'd up, which was, I thought, something they were selling in advance, which was a major disappointment. We've got, I think, a good 90 minutes on Golf Weekly this week, which is up online now, otbsports.com/Golf Weekly. If you want even more of that, told Richie to move along swiftly. We've got a lot to get to. Do you want to run through rapid fire?
One addendum to that LIV, just seeing James Corrigan's tweet to say that Alan Shipnuck, who of course reported those Phil Mickelson scary MFers comment, has been removed from the press area by security while Mickelson was talking. So another fine string to the bow of the Saudis there. Rory McIlroy 3 off the lead after his opening round of 66 at the RBC Canadian Open. He's in the clubhouse on 4 under par. Shane Lowry just a shot worse off on 3 under. William Clark leading in the clubhouse on 7 under. And as you mentioned at the top of the show, the Republic of Ireland under 21s have secured at least a playoff spot for next year's European Championships without kicking a ball this evening. Sweden and Group F leaders Italy played out a 1-1 draw in Helsingborg. The result means Ireland can't be caught by the Swedes in second and go to Italy next Tuesday with a chance to top the group and qualify automatically. Dealer Waves play Bohemians in the Women's National League tonight. That kicks off in around 15 minutes time. Also underway in 15 minutes time in Pristina, the Group C, League C meeting in the Nations League of Northern Ireland and Kosovo.
We will have live commentary of Republic of Ireland against Scotland on Saturdays off the ball from 5 o'clock, so lots more to come on that. John Giles coming up in just a moment, and Dan McDonnell on the football show as well. We are out of time for now though. Richie, thank you as always.
Nice, lads.
Joe, enjoy the weekend.
Thanks, lads.